Welcome to Graphite Hub's interview series, a series dedicated to all things graphite. Now, today we're joined by Rita Adiani, President and CEO of Titan Mining. So, welcome to the series, Rita.
Thanks, Harry. Good to be here.
So, when we look at Titan, it's a company that's relatively new when it comes to the graphite market, and so my audience might not be too familiar with the company, and we're just interested in hearing a little bit more about the company, which I think the progress where you guys are at, I think will shock some people. Yeah, let's start off with, if you wouldn't mind just providing an overview of Titan.
Sure. Yeah, no, as you say, Harry, we're fairly new to the graphite scene. We are actually the United States' fourth largest zinc producer. So we've been in operation now for 7 years, and we produce substantial quantities of zinc in the United States. And it was only by, sheer coincidence that we came across traces of natural flake graphite within our 120,000 acre mineral rights package. And really, I think where we've had significant just good luck, but also great exploration work done is finding graphite near surface and within a mile of our existing zinc concentrator. So as we progress through the rest of this year, as of Q4, we will become the United States' first end-to-end domestic producer of natural flake graphite for over 70 years. So we're already a zinc producer, and obviously with the brownfield site that we have and an operational site really on the zinc side, we've been able to fast track it into becoming a producer of natural flake graphite, which, as we know, is a pretty unique thing to be doing in the United States.
Exactly. And I think, that will shock a lot of people knowing that you guys will be producing quite soon. And I think you've definitely flown under the radar. But then we're all aware of the challenges that the graphite market is facing at the moment, which has hindered a lot of progress for some companies, but clearly not Titan. So what has been the key to achieving this level of progress in such a short amount of time?
So I think, Harry, where we've been exceptionally lucky, but also we've been exceptionally, agile, is being able to move at the pace that we have been is largely due to the fact that we are an existing producer. We already have an established infrastructure. We have about a 5,000 ton per day mill. We employ over 160 people. We have water, we have power, we have permits. And, therefore for us, beginning production on a small scale for graphite was just a complete no-brainer. We've had a significant amount of governmental support, be it at federal level, be it at state level, be it at county level. And I just think being an existing producer has helped us fast track, all our activities related to graphite, and really have helped us, sort of position ourselves very well to potentially become the first producer of graphite, even on a commercial scale, which we'll come to talk about here today.
And so would you mind providing an update on where Titan is at with offtake discussions for the concentrate?
Yeah. So where we are is, as you know, we've launched our demonstration facility, which will begin production this quarter, and we will be using effectively the concentrate from it to be able to go down the path of offtake discussions and being able to sell, be it concentrate, be it micronized flake graphite or purified micronized graphite. Those are the three initial components that we're focusing on whilst we work on CSPG qualification, obviously with the larger OEMs. We've had a significant amount of interest. We've been in contact with over 80 companies, largely in the United States, across these various product groups, which I've talked about. And we're very confident. I mean, we've had indications that, our demonstration plant is sized for 1,200 metric tons, and someone told us we'll take it all. So I think we're very optimistic about the fact that yes, there is a market for it. Being a domestic producer really puts us in a very different light, and being a domestic producer today and being able to say, hey, we have product today is something that certainly does make us very attractive. And, the proof is all in the pudding.
Exactly. It sounds promising, but one of the biggest challenges that we see at the moment are graphite prices are significantly lower than what we saw 3 or 4 years ago. That has hindered a lot of progress for companies. But so in your position, how do you view the current pricing environment, and what gives you confidence in the long-term recovery?
Yeah, I think, one of the key things, Harry, is for so long, the only pricing benchmark that has existed has been a Chinese pricing benchmark, because that's effectively where 80% of the world's supply of graphite comes from. So when we look at pricing, it's very difficult to, sort of say this is what the price for a graphite produced in the United States should be when your only other benchmark is China. So I think, with everything that you're seeing here, what we are developing is a Western cost basis, and we're developing a Western pricing structure. Obviously, tariffs and other policy mechanisms, do a lot to level the playing field. And, whilst they're part of the larger policy arena to allow companies like us to compete effectively, I think there is going to be a reset effectively in terms of, what effectively would be the price for natural flake graphite, 94, 95% in the United States versus what is coming out of China. And, even if you do the broad math around the $395, per ton of flake, and you add to it everything that you need to add to basically get a landed product in the United States, you end up pretty close to $1,300 a ton. So I think the reality of the situation is pretty straightforward, that it's not about price recovery as we've seen it. It's not about Chinese price recovery. It's about establishing a Western cost structure and a Western pricing structure, which I think you've seen indications from the G7, you've seen indications from the US government, and, with all our involvement that we have across the board at the White House and everywhere else, we see very good indications that, there will be policy support for US producers, at least for natural flake graphite.
I think that's definitely been highlighted recently, yeah, especially geopolitically in the US. And we saw not too long ago that you've received from the EXIM bank a letter of interest up to 120 million US dollars. So now that you've received that letter of interest, what is the timeline and process to get that over the line?
So it's a fairly quick process. I mean, just by way of reference, we are an existing customer of US EXIM. US EXIM has already lent us $15.8 million for our zinc facility. And actually, we were their first ever, we were the United States EXIM's first ever mining partner, and they've never done a mining deal before. So they've already underwritten a lot of the risk associated with the business. They're very comfortable with it. And, that was the first phase of the two-phase engagement strategy, where obviously the graphite is the key piece, which is very high up on the US government's list. And it's going to be a pretty straightforward process where effectively they work with us as we work through our feasibility study to diligence it. And then they look to support, us with 120 million for all the construction requirements for the project. So we expect this process to run hand in hand with our feasibility study, which we will be running during the course of 2026. And our goal is certainly to take FID by the end of 2026. So it's a pretty swift process, but we worked with them for close to a year now, and we have great relationships. So we're very confident that we'll be able to execute it in a timely way.
And out of curiosity, if they do provide financing to you, does that determine who you can or can't sell your concentrate to? Like, say, for example, could you
No,
sell to China if you really wanted to?
no, I don't think we would, but I think the only requirement which they have is they want more to be made in America because it is the United States EXIM. And they do want at least 10 to 15% of your product to be exported because it is the United States Export Import Bank. So, I think, there is a certain amount of diligence as to who your end customers are. And it comes down to as to the creditworthiness of those customers. Within our customer pool, we certainly don't have Chinese customers. So, we're not really thinking about it that way. And for us, we really are a US focused business and looking to partner with, US and allied nations with a view towards expanding the supply chain.
And you mentioned earlier that the demonstration facility is going to be brought online in Q4, which we're in now. Would you mind talking us through what you're working on now to get that over the line?
Yep. So we are in the final stages. We've actually begun wet commissioning, which, as everybody knows, is the final, sort of testing of the wet equipment. And then we start ore feed really in a couple of weeks. We have about 15,000 tons, which has been crushed, which has been mined and crushed and sitting there. So within 2 weeks, we will be able to, begin the ore feed and therefore really have, line of sight into concentrate before the end of the year. And that's why I said, we've been able to do this and turn around things so quickly, largely because it's been easier for us. I mean, the whole facility, it's quite a large facility, but it sits in the basement of our zinc concentrator. So, we've been able to move very quickly to execute it.
Well, no, it sounds like things are heading in the right direction. And so if we look ahead to the next, say, 6 to 12 months, what should investors expect to see come out of the company?
I think one of the big things that we will be working towards in 2026 will obviously be our feasibility study, which is supported by the US government, as I said, to a certain extent. And then from there on, we're looking at FID, which is towards the end of 2026, with a view towards going into construction in 2027. We expect to complete our permitting activities. We already started on our permitting activities, and those will be complete by the end of, late 2026, latest spring of 2027, which is when we'll start construction. So this is certainly a project which, we've been focused on bringing into production within the term of this administration. Everything that, all the support that we've been getting is largely because we're so far ahead of the curve, largely in terms of being an operating site. I think it's given, folks a lot of confidence that we are the first mover, and we certainly will benefit from it.
Yeah. Well, fantastic, Rita. It's been a pleasure talking today, and we look forward to hopefully getting out and checking out the demonstration facility at some point.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Harry. Thanks for taking the time.
Perfect. Thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Graphite Hub's interview series. We'll see you next time.